Hi, and welcome to the podcast. Today I have a special guest with me, and this is Layne Beachley. Hi, Layne.
Good afternoon, Tanya.
How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm good. I've had an interesting afternoon, but I'm going to get into that because one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was your new program, but also about mental health in the surfing world, but also in the world in general, because I think it's bigger than just the surfing world. And I know that you, in particular, have spoken in the last couple of years more than just about focusing on our small areas, but focusing globally and how we can change that.
Yep.
Where do you feel we're missing the point when it comes to mental health? Big question to start with.
Wow. Solve the world's problems, Layne, in 30 seconds. Go.
Go.
I feel that we're missing it there's so much stigma attached to mental health. There's so much judgment, and the opposite of judgment is empathy. And I'm a crusader for empathy. I want the world to adopt a more empathetic mindset and recognize that everybody has a story and have the patience to acknowledge that within ourselves and each other. What do you think?
What do I think?
Where are we missing it?
We're missing it with the children.
Oh, you wanted me to pick a certain demographic?
No, I didn't. I wanted you to talk widely because, and I say that because this afternoon, my daughter goes to a small private school.
Mm-hmm.
We just got notification that one of the students who is 14 took his life yesterday, which is shocking news.
That is shocking.
She's in year 7, so I haven't spoken to her yet, but so she's a year below this student. So, but it's a really small school, so she would have known who he was. But it's something that I go devastating for the community and devastating for his stepmother, so adopted mother.
Mm-hmm.
But I coach people. I think you remember I met you at DNS in March, and I'm a Czech practitioner. So I coach people with mental health problems, and I've got a couple of my books at the moment who are struggling significantly. But when something like this happens, you go, not that we can handle it with adults, and not that we expect it with adults, with anybody, it's unexpected, but where are we going wrong when our children are killing themselves? Like what are we doing or how can we help them?
Yes, there seems to be a really continuous theme within our kids at the moment, and COVID, I believe, has shone a very bright light on a very dark, sinister foe of depression and suicide. And the first point that I come back to is our parents, because we're a result of our generation. We're a result of our parents' generation and their parents' generation, and we've just got this continual menopause brain
legacy. Legacy.
Yeah, it's more. Yes, it is a legacy, actually. Yeah, you're right. And the challenge that we have is it takes many generations to shift the mentality. So I think about my father's generation. So my dad's 82. And the stiff upper lip, the tough love, the lack of sensitivity that he grew up in, and how that was passed on to me and my brother, and how much shame there was in being wrong or hurting myself, how there was no safety in expressing your sadness or disappointments. There was no encouragement to voice your concerns or voice my concerns. So today, if I see my dad, he's like, "How's your life?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's all right," and that's the end of the conversation. He's like, and I often say to him, "Do you care? Do you ever wonder if everything's all right in my life?" He's like, "Oh, I just know you'd tell me if there was something wrong."
So it's an assumption that you'll tell him. But I guess we need to take away that assumption.
Take away the assumption. I'm a silent sufferer. The existential crisis that leads to is the lack of communication, the lack of curiosity, And fortunately, I grew up at a time when it was safe to fail. And so therefore my identity wasn't wrapped up in failure. But at the same time, because of the shame that I experienced as a child, so if I hurt myself and a friend came over and said, "Oh, are you okay?" And my dad's immediate response was, "Oh, she's all right, get her a bloody wheelchair."
Yeah.
Even though my knee is twice the size. That has, and it's a childhood pattern that I still apply to my life that has caused me to be a silent sufferer. My advice to parents today is stop trying to solve the problem and empower our children and give them the safety and security to just speak and feel. You know, we as parents, we're so, you know, and I'm 48 years old. And at 48, I think about, you know, people who are parents at my age, and I think about, and I haven't had children, so I can't tell you how to parent your children, but I think about what it's like, and I observe all the time what's going on. I see parents at my age. I think about my childhood, and if I had a child, I would wrap my arms around them and protect them and do my best to prevent from having them to go through that same level of pain and shame that I experienced as a child. So therefore, I'm robbing them of the opportunity to boost their resilience and build their capacity to create confidence within themselves and their ability to overcome challenges. So we wrap them up, and we're now building a community of reliance versus resilience, because we're not making it safe. We're not giving them the opportunity to speak what they're saying without judging them or saying, "Don't be foolish." We're actually asking kids to lie from the very first moment that they know how to communicate. You know, if you put a plate of food in front of them and they screw up their face because they're expressing themselves in a way that's true to how they feel, and you're like, "Don't make that face."
Yeah.
Well, it's how I feel.
Yeah.
So we're not allowing people to feel the way they feel.
And hold that space for them and let them to express that. And I think I see that I've had to learn that with my coaching, that I'm not there to solve everyone's problems. I'm there to hear and offer possibilities of solutions and offer hope. Yeah, we're back now. I lost you for a second. Did you hear what
you just said? I'm not here to solve people's problems, and then I froze.
Yeah. So do you agree with that or disagree with that?
I agree with that. No one's here to solve anyone's problems, because no one can solve your problems. Only you can.
Right. Really good point. So I've followed you for a long time. I read your book when it first came out. You're welcome. So I'm going to ask you a few things from that, because I know you've been discussing these in the media in the last couple of years. How losing your mum and then finding out that you were adopted, how did that affect and influence your career and your drive to win? But can you tell our audience, or my audience, a little bit more about that? Because I know I heard you talking on Aunt Doe's show recently about how that influenced you and how that really drove you to prove something to yourself and prove to others that you were worthy. Is that the right way of saying that?
100%. You've listened well. Aunt Doe pulled me apart like an onion. Oh, there's another layer. Wait, there's another layer.
It was beautiful.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the interview too.
Yeah. So how did that influence? Like, how did that?
Actually, if I just move my camera, you might be able to see the painting.
Oh, wow.
There I am. Two for the price of one.
It's really beautiful.
Thank you. Now, to answer your question, it was all a derivative of a story that I subscribed to the moment my dad told me I was adopted. As you know, our brainwaves shift as we get more mature. So by the time we're about 6, we go from being a narcissist to having the capacity to judge, analyze, and criticize. And therefore, we start subscribing to the stories that go around in our heads. And the more we recite them, the louder they become and the more real they become.
Yeah.
So my dad said, "I love you and you're a part of this family, yet you're not a blood relation." And I chose to hear, "You've been abandoned and rejected and you're not worthy of your mother's love." That was the story that went around in my head for many, many years. And I had defined success as becoming a world champion. And I was not going to stop
until you got that.
Until I got that at all costs.
And not just one.
What drove me. No, well, I got there and I went, all right, I'm still not enough. And that's why I wear this t-shirt, actually,
Because you are enough. Yes.
because I am enough. But I'm only enough when I decide I'm enough. Up until that point, I'm not enough. So how do you define success? How do you know when you've achieved success? And when are you going to declare to yourself that you are enough?
Yeah, I guess that's a personal choice, and it's something that you have to find yourself, because everyone's definition of success is completely different.
100%. That's
Yeah.
it. And so that's what you need to start with. So what does success look like? And what's wrapped up in it? Because my sense of self-worth and identity was wrapped up in mine.
When did you discover that?
After I won my 6th consecutive world title.
What did you do to change that?
I acknowledged what was wrapped up in it, realized how much fear was driving my behavior, and recognized that my body was falling apart, and still pushed through that until my body broke down even further, and then pushed through that again, and then my body completely broke down.
I think we talked about this in DNS in March, didn't we? That your body was giving you the signs, but you chose to ignore them.
Yeah, like I said, the body whispers before it screams, and mine was screaming and I still wasn't listening. So in the end, I just had to tap out and go, okay, I'm listening now. And that's the thing, when our fuel light comes on in our car, we don't push the pedal to the floor and expect to get another 150 Ks out of the car, but we do with our bodies and our minds and our hearts and our souls and our relationships. We stretch and push and pull until they're just held by threads. And then we still think, if we can just get a little bit more.
There's still some more gas in the tank and there's nothing there.
There's nothing left. Yeah. And that's another, I don't know what you've learned from COVID, but from my experience, I realized that is my survival mode mechanism. And at the start of this year, I was straight back into it.
Yeah, I was going to say to you. Yeah. How often does that come back up again?
Oh, it's right there, right now.
So you're working on it all the time?
I'm still working. Like through COVID, I gave myself permission to I'm going to have a week off this week because we're all in this together. I don't have any work to do except I'm building an online course and I have a deadline to when I want to, it's my deadline. I can stretch it.
You can push it back if you need to.
Yeah, but I need to be at my best to produce my best, and I'm not at my best yet. Somehow we can still convince ourselves, yeah, I'm not at my best, not doing my best, but that's good enough. Does that sound familiar?
It does sound very familiar, yes. You asked me, what did I learn in COVID? I learned that I'm capable of more than I give myself credit for, or had given myself credit for. So I did some mentoring with a guy named Craig Harper. I'm not sure if you know him. He's a podcaster and used to be a personal trainer, used to own gyms down here in Melbourne. Anyway, did some work at the end of 2019 with him, actually around his podcast, and a few things that I had been not pushing myself in. So I kind of will do the hard things and they become easy. And then I sit in that. I don't push myself any further. And one of his philosophies is that don't just stay lifting the same weights at the gym. Like you have to lift more if you want to get more, kind of thing. So I realized that I was sitting in that safe place. So I needed to get even though it looks to other people like I'm in a challenging place, it might be to start with, but then it gets comfortable and I stay in the comfort zone. So I've learned that, that I'm more capable, but I need to keep finding things that push me outside my comfort zone, because my comfort zone becomes too comfortable too quickly.
There's a lot of science that supports that, but then there's also a lot of science that refutes that by saying sometimes you need to lift less to do more. We constantly think about expanding our comfort zone by doing more that expands our comfort zone. But you know what? Sometimes retreating inwards and having the courage just to listen and tune in and focus on how you're feeling and how you're behaving and some of the habits that you may have acquired that aren't supporting you, and changing the little things about yourself will expand your comfort zone. Yeah. As well as going out and seeking and doing and being and lifting more.
I think one thing I should probably qualify in that is that by pushing my boundaries, I'm pushing the boundaries within myself by going within myself as well. So I started what we call a 100-day gong, which is 100 days of 20 minutes of meditation.
Wow.
Yeah, consecutively. I'm now at day 227. So you're supposed to do 100.
Wow.
Yeah. I got to the 100 and I was like, well, why would I stop doing this if I'm learning more about myself by going inwards? And I know there's so much more within that I need to learn before not before I can go out, because I could do both, but like you just said, with like, it's not pushing my boundaries out so much, it's pushing my boundaries within and learning more about within myself and growing spiritually within that. So at the end of the 100 days, I was like, why would I stop at 100 if I'm getting more out of this? And I know I need to learn more within it. So I kept going.
But it's sharing those lessons too, right? Because we get this advice from these people, like, you need to keep expanding your comfort zone. It's like we were addicted to making the most of COVID. Like, you've got to look back on the time and know that you utilized it productively. Like, why do we put ourselves under so much pressure? Like, if you've got the space to just chill and be, then just utilize the space and the time and be. Yeah.
Absolutely. Definitely. You have spoken about your mental health struggles, and at one point you had suicidal thoughts. When did you recognize that? And was it people from the outside? Because I know you've spoken about friends and family prompting you to get help. Did you see the signs, or was it not until they saw the signs in you that you went, oh, actually there might be something in this? And how would someone recognize that in somebody else? So say you've got a family member or a friend who you think might be on the edge or might need some help. What would they do to reach out?
So the first part of the question is, yes, I saw the signs, but I chose to ignore them.
Yeah.
And there were simple signs, such as my health, for example, where I was bloated from just eating a single piece of toast, or I had really poor cognition. I wasn't able to think straight. I lost my confidence. And then my behaviors were things like I would retreat. I wasn't as socially active. I would avoid answering phone calls. I wasn't the same effervescent person. So if you see people's behavior, appearance, emotional state, any kind of, and you may consider it to be an insignificant change, but if you know someone well enough that you're constantly monitoring their behavior, then what you can do is just ask them, is everything okay? And are you okay? And if you get yeah, I'm fine, then maybe just dig a little bit deeper by saying, listen, I've noticed this, and I'm just wondering if you're noticing it too.
Ask the open-ended questions rather than the closed questions.
Yeah, yes. I'm seeing this within you. I'm wondering, are you noticing this? Or asking open questions as opposed to being accusational and judgmental, because that's what I copped. You're lazy, you're fat, geez, you're putting on some weight, what's fucking wrong with you? When people ask you that, you're like, oh, what is wrong with me? Is something wrong with me? I must be fat, I must be lazy.
And that's where your confidence would take a dive, I'm gathering.
Absolutely. So then you retreat to try and figure it out, and instead of figuring, you need to be feeling. That's what I keep saying. I need to feel life, not figure life. So when I get in touch with how I feel, then that gives me the strength, or at least the knowledge, because knowledge dispels fear, to just sit there and go, okay, why am I feeling this way? What's contributing to this? But when I hear people say, oh, it's all good. What a lot of bullshit. It's not all good. There's aspects of our life that we're not all good. And we use that as this throwaway statement to deflect the pain.
The shield.
It is the shield. The it's all good shield.
Yeah. So what tools did you use to help get yourself out of that place? And what do you use continually as well? Because I know it's not just sometimes people will see mental health as like a problem that we have to fix and it's over and done with, and then it's like a wound that's healed. Whereas I know from my perspective and from what I've coached and seen that it's not just that. There's no quick fix for this.
And there's no one size fits all fix to this either. There's so many different tools that I've utilized for different times. When I had chronic fatigue syndrome, and that's when I was probably one of my most depressed and dark states. What I used was fear. Like, I got really scared. And so that was the impetus to pick up the phone and go, I need help. But prior to picking up the phone, I had to know who to call.
Yeah.
And if I didn't have that network of people that I confided in, had built that sounding board of, or even just in my mind, my board of directors, the people that I knew in my life that I could consistently rely on, then I wouldn't have picked up the phone and gone, help. But I picked up the phone, I called a girlfriend called Joanna Griggs, who I knew had been through a similar experience, and her response was, what took you so long? Like, we know you're struggling. But you're not going to do anything about it until you're ready to do something about it. That's why I always say dissatisfaction is the precursor. So I got dissatisfied because I got scared.
Yeah.
When I had depression a couple of years ago, which is what gave me the impetus to then become an ambassador for Are You OK? That was triggered by a social media post of a friend's wedding that I wasn't invited to. And I got into a deep, dark, and the best way that I can describe depression for me is numb. I'm numb to feeling. I'm numb to feeling joy, and I'm numb to feeling sadness. I'm just numb. I don't want to be spoken to. I don't want to be seen. I don't want to be questioned. I'm just numb. Just don't touch me. Don't look at me. I'm numb. And that's a really scary place to find yourself, because you can surround yourself and protect yourself very easily in that state. And that's where I found myself until one afternoon, I asked my husband, "Are you okay? Because you're not speaking to me." And he looked at me and goes, "Actually, it's you that's not speaking. Are you okay?"
Oh,
Be
wow.
like, holy shit, I've been found out. Like, oh no, I've been seen.
Yeah.
Damn it. But
Yeah.
at least I had that support network. Once again, when I was building this course, I went into depression because I started the comparison game, and comparison leads to that sense of inadequacy. So I rang up another friend. I'm like, I don't feel like I'm enough. I don't feel like I'm good enough, smart enough. I don't think my content's strong enough to share with the world. And so then I drew my feelings and to express them. I had, it's always, I feel for me, the best way for me to detach from the fear is to share my fears with somebody else. I know all the tools: surfing, immersing myself in nature, journaling, drawing, crying, writing. I know all the tools. Sometimes they don't work.
Yeah. When you said before that you withdraw and you pull yourself away and you don't want to take phone calls, don't respond to texts, would you recommend that your friends keep texting, that they keep reaching out?
Yes.
Yeah, even if they don't get a response?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm so saddened to hear your news. I'm going to a funeral tomorrow that happened to the same guy. He took his own life. And, 6 out of 8 suicides are males because they don't talk.
They don't talk.
They've got this stigma that they're the men of the household. They have to, it's weak to show vulnerability, and it's weak to show that you're upset and you don't have the strength to deal with it. And he had all the tools. He was very well equipped. He was very well supported. He had a network, and it was midnight. He knew his crew were going to be asleep, and he sent them all a message saying, "I hope you can forgive me," and then took his own life.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, sometimes you just can't stop it.
No.
And the worst thing you can do is blame yourself for it.
Yeah.
But we can do everything that we can possibly do to prevent it. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the individual's choice. And it's distressing, and it's heartbreaking, and it's infuriating at the same time.
I was going to say there's anger that comes with that mourning and that grief as well.
Yeah,
because
you've got the 5 stages of grief,
Yeah.
But yes, keep checking in. And yeah, it's not something that we can solve overnight.
No, it's not. I worked yesterday.
Can you hear that phone?
I can a little bit. That's okay though.
Yeah,
Is he getting that?
Yeah, he's getting it. Okay. Good.
I worked yesterday morning. I've just gotten a job at Urban Surf as a surf coach.
Oh, no way.
Yes, way. Yes.
I still haven't been down there yet.
You have to come. Now you have to come.
Amazing.
It's beautiful.
That's so cool.
Yesterday, I'm still doing my shadowing shifts. I'm still doing my 20 hours to become qualified, which will happen by the end of next week. And then they're going to let me loose on the public by myself. But I know, right? No, I am actually good. I'm good. We had in, which was really amazing because we weren't told about it. Myself and my other coach who was coaching with me, Nat, we got to sit in on and coach a group with WOW. Is it WOW? Waves of Wellness?
Women on Wax? Oh, well, Waves of Wellness.
Waves of Wellness, yeah. They're the guys who run it are based from Sydney, but they do all Australia-wide. That group was it was the first time they were at Urban Surf, which was fantastic, but they had a group of invitation people, paramedics, I don't think they were police officers, paramedics and fireys. One of the fireys said something to me which really took me back to my childhood, because my dad was a fireman for a very brief period of time. But I know, having worked with people in those services, what their stigma is. And we talked about this a little bit before with your dad. This fireman yesterday said their attitude is changing and it's getting better, but it's still got a long way to go. And the quote that he used that they get told is, If you got an issue, get a tissue.
Oh,
And that's it. And like, get
slap
over it.
them.
Yeah. So we talk about men because they don't talk, and I have had a lot to do with men with mental health problems. But in what I consider to be one of the worlds that you work in the surfing world, did you have a lot to do with, or did you know Andy Irons, and how did that affect you personally as well as the surfing world if you knew him? Because that had a profound effect on me.
Yeah, it shocked the world. It shocked the surfing world, and we all thought, "Gosh, how did we let this happen? Why didn't we do more?" You know, it's the common survivor's guilt, and the intensity of the news. Really, it rocked the whole surfing world. Personally, for me, I think I'm just so pragmatic about death because I've experienced so much of it, and there's times when I fall apart. There's times when the grief catches me by surprise. It just, it unrattles me and unsettles me. And then there's times when I just go, damn it, like, why?
Yeah.
But, and I often reconcile it too. I often go, wow, I'm just so grateful that Andy left the mark that Andy left.
Yeah.
His life mattered.
It did.
And at the end of the day, I think that's all anyone wants, is to know that our life matters. When it comes down to mental health with men, though, in particular, for people who are familiar with it and don't have a judgment of it, they can actually do something about it. So I just went and had a coffee with my chiropractor, who is very familiar with Ravi.
Yeah.
And he's joined a men's running group and he's created a conversation of the week question that they all ponder and talk about as they run. Just getting conversations kickstarted. You can't expect men just to walk into an environment and open up. They've got to be given the time and the safety to do that.
Do you think we're doing that better in the surfing world? Do you still have? No, we're not doing it well enough. No, there's still too much of a stigma around diversity and inclusion and mental health and all of those things. It's the surfing world's still a bit toxic in that state. I know Tyler Wright is on a crusade to create a more safe, inclusive and equal surfing world for everybody. And I've helped her establish that vision. And as chair of Surfing Australia, I want to be part of the implementation of it as well. Yeah, one of the big things I know that I've felt coming through, I can't speak on behalf of Urban Surf, but I've felt it coming through their recruitment process, is that they want to have more women in surfing.
Yeah, we all want more women in surfing. We need to bring more happiness and laughter and light to the water. Men can be quite intense and controlling and assertive, whereas women, we love to giggle, we love to laugh, we love to natter, we love to have more fun. And I think it balances out the whole environment. Bring a bit of estrogen to the testosterone that rules the waves, and it makes it more fun out there.
You had, from my perspective, you were very much yang. So when we talk about yin and yang, you understand what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Yes.
Throughout your career,
I was more yang. I do need to bring more yin.
And I was going to say to you, how are you bringing more yin into your life?
Well, I'm doing a 15-minute yin yoga routine before bed every night.
That's
how
awesome.
I'm bringing more yin into my life. Because yes, I am very yang. I'm very headstrong. I'm very driven and focused, and I'm running on the treadmill of life. So sometimes I have to stop and go, okay, I need to detach or decompress the sympathetic nervous system, activate the parasympathetic nervous system, and just give myself a break. Yes. And I don't give myself permission to do that enough. And I'm just realizing that I can't run that rate.
No.
I've been going through menopause for 6 years now. Yeah. And I've been feeling really crap over the last few months, and yet just putting it down to menopause. And then my heart decided to speak up, and I started having a shortness of breath and heart palpitations. So I rang Dr. Ross Walker, who's one of Australia's best cardiologists, and I said, I'm having these little issues. He's like, come on in, and put me through an ECG test and stress test, and went, no, everything's okay with your heart, but maybe it's your hormones and your thyroid. So sent me off to a hormone doctor and went and got my blood test, and I went and saw him last week. He's like, okay, we've got lots to talk about.
Huh?
I went, oh, is that a good thing? He's like, no, not exactly. But now we know why you're feeling the way you feel. You have no iodine, you have no estrogen, you have no testosterone, you have no progesterone, and you've got 2 parasites.
Oh, so wow. So I'd have fun with you then, jeepers. So
Yeah.
you're running on empty. So your adrenal glands have really run that hormonal system completely down.
Yeah, it's taken everything out of it, and it's putting it into cortisol. It's just putting it into my sympathetic nervous system, because that's how I've operated. So meditating for 100 days straight will be a really good challenge for me.
If you want to jump in with me, you're more than welcome to. I'll do a video one with you if you want. We can talk about that later.
Scares me.
Nothing to be frightened about. Most of it's not.
You're holding me ransom. No, you're holding me accountable.
Well, let's start with a small, like we can start with 50 in a row if you want to do it that way.
Yeah.
Don't make it so scary.
I mean, I have the Calm app, and I do because I meditate when I stretch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's no reason why I can't do it.
Awesome. Let's talk about that after this though.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you a few more questions, and we're going to go back into the surfing world again, because I admire what you have done for women, because I know a little bit from what you talked about when we were at DNS in March. Can you explain what your role has been in bringing equality in pay to women surfing? Because that was massive.
Ooh, that was massive. And I played a small part in it, because my predecessors established the foundation for me to then go on and make a real dent in the way in which women's surfing was perceived and therefore supported. When I joined the Pro Tour in 1990, I had this grand vision that I wanted women's surfing to emulate women's tennis. I needed it to stand on its own 2 feet, because we had a major disparity between how we were supported and recognized, and it was toxic. There was so much misogyny and sexist behavior and chauvinism, and it was a draconian environment. It was it was horrendous. And there's a great film coming out in January called Girls Can't Surf, in January 2021, that talks to this, and it's a great documentary. It's through our voice and through our eyes. And the guys, some of the comments are just gold. I mean, they bury themselves. We don't need to say anything. Oh, it's amazing. I love it. Anyway, the part I played, well, yes, I took it upon myself to first have the vision, then implement it through being on the board of directors for 15 years of the 19 years I was on tour, to be the voice of women's surfing, to be the voice of reason, to be the leader as world champion, to be the spokesperson, to be the ambassador, to be the role model. Put a lot of pressure on myself, didn't I?
Say,
Layne, there's a lot of hats.
That's a lot of responsibility for one person to take on.
Yeah, and I was really passionate about it, because I wanted to leave the sport in a better place than I found it. And I also saw it as my duty, because no one else was doing it. I mean, I'd sit at the board table and go, I want a prize money increase. They're like, screw you, you're not worth it. I'm like, screw you, I'll go do it myself. So that's when I started staging the richest surfing event in the world, which I did for 7 years. And I doubled the prize money in the first year. And it took the industry 3 years to catch me. And then once they did, I continued to increase the prize money until they could never match me. And they never did. Yeah. And then after 7 years, the WSL came in and bought the tour. And I was like, all right, my work here is done. Bye. And then that was 2013. And then by 2018 was when they announced pay equity.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I was very proud.
I know that you said you're not a mother, but that's definitely mothering.
Yes, I'm very nurturing.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. You fit that archetype very well.
Thanks. I think.
Absolutely. What do you think your soul purpose is? Why were you brought here?
Oh, geez, the $1 million question. Why was I brought? I was brought here. I don't know why I was brought here. Not this time anyway. Other than, my personal why right now is awakening others awakens me. The more that I awaken, the more I can awaken others. The more they awaken me, the more I can awaken others.
Yeah.
So the continuous growth.
You just mentioned something then as well. This time.
Yeah.
Have you been here before?
I believe I have. Yes.
What do you have memories of that?
I did a past life regression. There might be people going, oh, what a crock of shit, Beachley. What the hell are you going on with? But I believe in ghosts. I've actually interacted with them. And I've done a past life integration where I was a male Roman, of all things.
That does not surprise me, Layne.
Yeah, I can even see the sandals I was wearing and the robes that I had on.
Yeah, wow.
But it was interesting because as I started going back, the first memory I had was of my mother, and I had my mother that had died when I was 6, and I had one tear fall out of my left eye, which is my feminine side.
Yep.
And then when I went all the way back to being this male Roman holding a baby, one tear came out of my right eye, out of my masculine side.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was all very strange. Whatever that means, I have no idea. I didn't read into it. It just, it just is what it is. But yes, I believe I've been here several times, and we'll probably be here several
times more.
If this planet can sustain us, because we're raping it.
Yeah, absolutely we are.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Maybe that's what we're meant to be learning in this lifetime.
Maybe that we're parasites and that we destroy the environment we live on.
I think that was I thought that before COVID.
Yeah. Yeah, now it's been magnified.
Absolutely. Do you think we have more than one reason for being here then, that soul purpose can change?
Yeah, absolutely. Our values change, our beliefs change, our purpose can change. What doesn't change is our deep desire to belong. That never changes. But the one and only place that we belong to is ourselves. And that's the one and only place that we deny ourselves that true sense of belonging.
Do you think that is part of the mental health problem?
Absolutely, it's part of the mental health problem.
That we're searching outside for looking for belonging in other places when we don't find that in ourselves first?
Absolutely, but who teaches that at school?
I was going to say, who teaches that at school? That comes from parentage, I guess, doesn't it?
It does. And how many parents are conscious enough to recognise that?
Hopefully more than there used to be.
Yes, that is the intention. Let's start with ourselves and have the courage to look in the mirror.
What parts of your childhood do you think prepared you for your life now?
Oh, growing up in Manly, for sure. God, it was just this, sexist boys club that I had to fight my way through and negotiate my way through and ultimately conquer to deserve the right to be a woman in a man's world. Yeah, I fought hard, and I feel like the lessons that I learned, giving as good as I got and standing up and fighting for myself and surrounding myself with male allies and finding my dream team, having the courage to be vulnerable, expressing myself, all of those lessons were incredibly valuable, but learned in and around the beach at Manly.
Yeah.
On the beach, on the water.
Fighting for every single wave.
Yeah, sure did.
What are you going to be doing going forward? What's exciting you now?
What's exciting me now is actually, my course I love. I'm really excited about it. I want to build another one, but it's going to take another COVID. What's exciting me now is holding on to the learnings from the whole pandemic period, recognizing my infallibility and staying connected to that, changing my habitual patterns to honor myself. And what else is exciting me? Surfing still excites me.
I was going to say, you're still surfing every day?
Yes,
yeah.
Every day. Yeah, that's about it. And then, of course, the strengthening of the love and the bond that I share with my husband, that excites me. And just learning more about myself, and hearing it. And what's the word I'm looking for? Come on, little menopause brain. You've got it. It's in there. It's like, when you have, I don't know, have you gone through menopause? You're probably too young to go through
No,
menopause.
I'm almost the same age as you. I'm just turned 47. I think I just turned
Oh, okay.
73. But no, I haven't started menopause yet.
They just disappear. They're gone. They're like, they float around the ether, and then you start talking about something else. It's almost like they land back in you, like, oh yeah,
that's what I'm talking about.
Too late to bring that back into the conversation. Yeah.
Speaking about your husband, did his diagnosis, and are we allowed to talk about this? Did his diagnosis change the way you look at things? And did that give you you brought up infallibility, did that give you more of a sense of a time frame?
Gave me a sense of urgency to sort this out, and at least do some investigation and start doing some research as to what his options were. The challenge with Kirk's prognosis and his situation was the way in which he was notified. So first, he had come home from an event. I was in Adelaide speaking, so we were on opposing states. And he was notified by email, you've got cancer, see you in 2 weeks, have a great holiday. Book in to see me when you get back. So just the uncertainty wrapped up in that diagnosis.
And lack of empathy.
And lack of empathy was unacceptable. And then we went on holidays, and I was numb for the first 5 days because I was shit scared. I mean, yes, you've got cancer. What does that mean? Where's it located? What's the severity? What are our options? What do we do now? Who do we speak to? Where's the go-to place to find out about this? Are there any other forums or anyone that that's been through it? Can we call them? Can we find out? Like,
yeah.
And it freaked me out. And so I ended up snapping at my neighbor who was on holidays with us. And fortunately, she's one of my honesty barometers. If I say something or do something that's unacceptable, she doesn't let me get away with it. She just turns it back on me and says, don't talk to me like that way. What's going on? Oh.
I have one of those. I call her my Jiminy Cricket. She's my
Jiminy
conscience.
Cricket?
Yep.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, I got pulled up, and that's when I realized I was shit scared, and I sat in the back of the car and I started asking myself, what's going on? And when I allowed myself to feel the fear, I started crying. So I asked them to pull over the car, and I went to the public toilets and just bawled my eyes out, and then came out and told Kirk what was going on, and he's like, yeah, I'm shit scared too. So gave us permission to be scared together, and then start doing some research, and then make a couple of phone calls. And then when we came home, then we got the true diagnosis that it was too late to do anything naturally. It was just get it out, get the prostate out. You got prostate cancer. Fortunately, it was confined to the prostate. And now it's just a part of his life. And but it's brought us closer together. To answer your question, yes, it's given me a very healthy perspective around immortality and or mortality. And making the most of the moments that you have, which we always had because we spent so little time together at the start. So we always made the most of the time we had together.
Yeah, because you had very separate lives. Yeah.
Now COVID's brought us even closer together, and he's turned into a COVID puppy. He's had me home for the whole time, and now the world's breaking back up, and he doesn't want me to go anyway. He's like, where are you going? You can't leave me home alone.
You guys should move to Melbourne because you might get another dose of it down here.
Oh God, no, thanks.
One of the things, so I'm not sure whether I told you this, my first husband passed away from melanoma cancer.
Yes.
One of the things that I didn't like, particularly towards the end, and this is probably unusual, but when they gave him a time frame, because I think that limits your thinking.
It certainly does. Yeah, and then you subscribe to it. And that's the doctors protecting their own ass, right? And
absolutely.
So then you put a time limit on your own life.
Yeah. And it
is that what? And did he fulfill that time limit?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, he
didn't exceed it.
He didn't exceed it. He was, I want to say lucky, and I don't like the word lucky, simply because I think even going through what I went through with him, I think everything happens for a reason and happens for a purpose. And my children, I had 2 children from Brian, and they've heard me talk about this. There were some amazing things that came out of his his experience, not necessarily for him, but for me, it changed my life completely and led me to do what I'm doing now, and led me to my husband and the family that I have now as well, along with my first 2 children. So there were many blessings, like COVID, there were many blessings from it. But I did see, I think it does, and I've seen it with other people as well, when they get a diagnosis like that and they say, or they read the literature and they say, I've got 3 to 6 months to live, that locks into their brain, that they lock into that in their brain, and they limit themselves to that when they don't necessarily explore the options that might not necessarily be the case.
Yeah, exactly. I've got a friend who's had a brain tumor, and he's lived 13 years longer than he was expected to live.
Yeah.
He just doesn't give up, and he's been through hell, and he's had plenty of operations, and he's lost an eye, but he just continues living on and persevering because he's got the love and support of his family, and he obviously believes that there's more to life than giving up on it.
Yeah, and living with purpose. And I don't think you have to have it, like when I was talking before about soul purpose, I know what my soul purpose is, and I know that part of
What's that?
My soul purpose is to help other people find and live their soul purpose through whatever means that is, and through providing them tools where they can see health and where they can see they need to improve in their health, and helping shine the light on the options that are already there for them, because I don't give them the options. Like I don't give them, I help show them the tools, but I can't use those tools for them. They have to use them themselves. So I feel like I'm kind of like someone who lights the path to showing them things that they may not necessarily have seen. And I want my legacy to be that we've got so much potential as humans that we don't use.
100%.
And
110%.
I've forgotten now what I was going to say about that before. I think people and their programming and
their limiting beliefs.
Yeah, their limiting beliefs.
Yeah, and to a degree, it can be a bit of a hook to hang their shit on, right? It can be a cop out. It can be an
excuse.
An excuse, and that's not for everybody, because there's some people have a legitimate reason for doing the way that living the way they live, or behaving the way they behave, or doing what they do. However, a lot of people rob themselves of choice by saying the words, "I had no choice."
Yeah.
And that in itself is a choice.
Yeah. And once you say those words, you don't even have to say them, you just have to think those words, and the chemical reaction in your body changes to believe that. Your brain will believe that, because thoughts are some of the most powerful things that we have.
And there's so little we know about our brains.
Yeah.
It's interesting. And it's interesting what you said, you believe everything happens for a reason. And I used to subscribe to that as well. Sometimes things just happen.
Yeah, sometimes shit just happen.
Sometimes shit just happens.
Some good and bad.
Yeah. And we make sense of it through finding reason.
Yeah. And understanding that and classifying that.
Yeah.
Do you still use one of the tools that you used to use, and that was to, I guess you don't now, but you used to, like, when you found out about being adopted, you went to the highest hill and rode the skateboard down the hill, like that adrenaline and riding the biggest waves. Do you still use that? No, you've dropped that altogether.
No. Yes. When I'm feeling unhappy or restless or sad, I now have the courage to sit in it.
Yeah. And
feel it, as opposed to running away from it. I still do immerse myself in nature, though. I still go to the ocean because I feel safe and I feel like I'm being held.
Yeah.
And then I just process what I'm processing. But I now sit in it a lot longer now. I don't go, I don't like this, but I want to get out of this. I just sit in it and go, okay, I feel this way today. I wonder what tomorrow has in store for me.
What would you like people to remember from this conversation?
Goodness. What would I like people to remember from this conversation? I think that, we've shared a lot of different points.
Reach out if you need help.
Reach out if you need help, but be your own accountability buddy. Surround yourself with people who elevate you and bring the best out in you. Be honest with who you are. It takes a lot of courage, and it's scary, but it's worth it, because you can't be everything to everybody. So be just be everything to yourself. Put yourself first, prioritize your health and well-being, and have the courage to look in the mirror in your own reflection into your own eyes and ask yourself, how am I feeling today? Because how we feel determines every choice we make.
How much closer are you to loving yourself?
I'm really there, actually. I do love myself. I just beat up on myself occasionally, but I do love myself. I have the capacity and the ability and the willingness to wrap my arms around myself and say, I love me.
Awesome, because you are enough.
I am enough.
Thanks so much for being with me today, Layne.
Thanks, Tanya. Thanks for the chat. It was lots of fun.